There's one part of the body almost everyone quietly gives up on. Not the knees, not the heart, not blood pressure. People fight for those, track the numbers, change their diets. The eyes are different. Most of us assume they're on a timer that started the day we were born. Thicker glasses every few years, and eventually the vision goes, and there was never anything to be done about it anyway. That assumption is wrong. After more than 2 decades sending patients down the hall to the retina specialist, I can tell you the part nobody usually explains. The tissue at the back of your eye that fails first isn't failing at random. It's being fed or slowly starved by what you eat. It's one of the most metabolically demanding tissues in the human body, and most of its repair work happens overnight, while you sleep, which means the fruit on your plate in the evening isn't a gimmick. It's raw material arriving right before the night shift clocks in. I'm Dr. William Bennett, Internal Medicine. Today I'm giving you a short list, not one miracle fruit, but the handful genuinely worth reaching for at night. I'll score each one against the 3 jobs a food actually has to do for aging eyes. A few of the famous ones barely make the cut. One of the best, most people don't even think of as a fruit at all. This is exactly the kind of question that comes up in my own practice, usually squeezed between checking blood pressure and walking out the door. It isn't a small concern. Losing central vision changes how you read, drive, and recognize the people you love across a room. So let's treat it with the seriousness it deserves. Section: What's actually happening back there? Once you understand the mechanism, the fruit list writes itself. At the very center of your retina sits a small region about the size of a capital letter O called the macula. It's the patch you read with, drive with, recognize a face with. Nearly all your sharp, detailed, color-rich vision comes from that one small area. Resting on top of it is a layer of yellow pigment, functioning as the eye's built-in filter. It absorbs the harshest, highest energy blue light before it can damage the delicate cells underneath, and it helps clean up the chemical residue that exposure leaves behind. Think of it as sunglasses built directly into the tissue, except these have to be replenished constantly from the outside. Here's the catch. That pigment is made from exactly 2 nutrients, lutein and zeaxanthin, and your body cannot produce either on its own. Every bit of that filter comes from food. Go too long without enough of it, and the filter thins. More damaging light gets through. Those cells begin to break down. That's the early stage of macular degeneration, the leading cause of vision loss in people over 60. Now here's why this tissue, more than almost any other in the body, depends so directly on what you had for dinner the night before. The photoreceptor cells that catch light for you are among the most energy-hungry cells you own, gram for gram. They run essentially non-stop, all day, every day, catching photons and converting them into signals your brain can use. That relentless activity generates a constant stream of chemical wear and tear, what physiologists call oxidative stress. To keep functioning, the very tips of these light-catching cells are worn down and rebuilt a little every single day on a schedule tied tightly to light and darkness. That rebuilding happens largely overnight and in the early morning hours. So your retina is not a passive camera quietly sitting at the back of your skull. It's closer to a small factory running a night shift, and like any factory, it can only work with whatever supplies arrived before the doors closed. If the delivery truck showed up empty, the night shift improvises, and improvising with the wrong materials is where long-term damage accumulates. The encouraging part, because I don't want to leave you with only bad news, this is backed by genuinely solid research. A large clinical trial in the early 2010s gave older adults at high risk of vision loss a supplement containing lutein and zeaxanthin, and tracked them over several years. Among participants whose diets had been lowest in these nutrients to begin with, the trial found a meaningful reduction in progression to advanced disease. The filter can measurably rebuild itself with the right nutritional input. So here are the 3 jobs every fruit on this list gets scored against, and I want you to keep these in your head as we go through each one. Job 1. Rebuild the filter. That means lutein and zeaxanthin, the 2 pigments your body cannot manufacture on its own. Job 2. Protect the plumbing. Your retina has an unusually rich blood supply for its size, and those small vessels are prone to damage from blood sugar swings, inflammation, and oxidative stress over time. Job 3. Lower overnight stress, the antioxidants your eyes burn through in large quantities while repairing themselves in the dark hours. Rebuild the filter, protect the plumbing, lower the damage. That's the entire framework for everything that follows. One honest note: a handful of berries at 2 in the afternoon still helps your eyes, but evening earns its own spotlight for 2 reasons. First, your retina does its heaviest repair overnight, so having the raw materials on hand gives your body a head start. Second, a couple of these fruits also help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer, and sleep is precisely when the repair happens. Fruit 1. Kiwi. Kiwi goes first because it does something none of the others on this list manage to do at the same time. It's one of the most vitamin C-dense fruits you can buy, delivering more vitamin C per bite than an orange, and it carries a genuinely useful dose of lutein alongside that. Inside the eye, vitamin C is concentrated at levels many times higher than in the bloodstream because the fluid bathing your lens leans on it to fend off the daily oxidation that can cloud a lens into a cataract. So kiwi alone already covers 2 of our 3 jobs: rebuilding the filter and lowering overnight oxidative damage. But the real reason it leads this list is sleep. Researchers in Taiwan ran a study where participants ate 2 kiwis roughly an hour before bed every night for 4 weeks. Their time to fall asleep dropped by a substantial margin, and they stayed asleep longer once they did. Part of the explanation is that kiwi carries its own natural serotonin, a building block your brain uses to wind down and transition into deeper sleep stages. So you end up with a single fruit that hands your eyes vitamin C and lutein, and then helps deliver the deep, uninterrupted sleep your retina actually needs in order to carry out its nightly repair work. 2 kiwis, about an hour before you turn in, is the single easiest change on this entire list. And if you only take one thing away tonight, make it this one. This one has the strongest long-term evidence behind it of anything on this list, and it's also the cheapest and easiest to find. Everyone already knows oranges have vitamin C. Fewer people know the real workhorse compound is a group called flavonoids, which handle job 2 directly, calming and protecting the tiny delicate vessels that feed the retina. These compounds seem to reduce low-grade inflammation in vessel walls and support their long-term integrity in a way that plain vitamin C alone doesn't fully explain. A long-running Australian population study followed adults for 15 years and found that those eating at least 1 orange daily had substantially lower odds of developing advanced macular degeneration compared with people who rarely ate them. 15 years of real-world tracking, not a laboratory dish, not a 6-week trial. That kind of long-horizon data is rare in nutrition science. One important distinction, and I want to be direct about this: eat the actual fruit, not the juice. Juicing strips out nearly all the fiber and concentrates the natural sugars, which spikes blood sugar far more than eating the whole fruit would. Elevated blood sugar is its own slow threat to those same retinal vessels we're trying to protect, and that risk is especially pronounced if you're managing diabetes or prediabetes. So keep it simple. A whole orange, a mandarin, a few segments of grapefruit, whatever's sitting in the bowl. In the evening, it's a low-effort, low-cost win that fits into almost any routine. Blueberries, blackberries, dark raspberries, and similar deeply pigmented berries all share a compound called anthocyanin, and it's what gives them their color. Anthocyanins are potent antioxidants that concentrate their protective effect right at the overlap between job 2 and job 3, the small vessels and the oxidative load they're constantly under. Quick myth check, because you've probably heard this one before. The story that British fighter pilots in the Second World War ate bilberry jam and gained supernatural night vision. That story is widely understood among historians as wartime cover invented to disguise the early development of radar technology, not an actual nutrition finding. And when bilberry's effect on night vision was later tested directly in controlled studies, it showed no meaningful benefit. So no, a handful of blueberries will not turn you into a night owl, and I'd rather correct that now than let it linger. What the real evidence does support is quieter, but genuinely useful, steady, low-level antioxidant support for the small vessels at the back of the eye over months and years. This isn't a dramatic overnight fix. It's the slow, unglamorous kind of protection that adds up. A small handful in the evening, fresh or frozen, does the job, and frozen berries are nutritionally just as good as fresh and considerably cheaper year-round. Most people don't file this one under fruit at all, but for your eyes specifically, it may be the smartest pick on the entire list, and the reason has less to do with its own nutrient content than with what it does for everything else you eat alongside it. Lutein and zeaxanthin are fat-soluble compounds. That means they cannot be absorbed through your gut and transported to your macula without dietary fat traveling alongside them. You could eat an enormous salad packed with lutein-rich greens and pass most of it straight through unused if the meal contains no fat whatsoever. This is one of the most overlooked details in eye nutrition advice. People focus on which foods contain the nutrient and ignore whether the body can absorb it. Avocado solves both halves of that equation simultaneously. It carries its own meaningful dose of lutein, and it supplies exactly the kind of healthy fat needed to escort that lutein and any other lutein in the same meal into your bloodstream and onward to your eyes. A study published in the journal Nutrients had older adults eat 1 avocado daily for 6 months and measured an actual physical increase in eye pigment density using standard clinical instruments. That's job 1, not just claimed, but measured. Half an avocado in the evening does the job. And here's a small bonus worth mentioning. Pairing it with tomato in the same sitting appears to boost lutein absorption from the meal even further, so a simple avocado and tomato combination in the evening covers more ground than either ingredient would alone. The small dried red berries, sometimes labeled wolfberries on the package, sold in most grocery stores near the dried fruit and trail mix section. If job 1 is rebuilding the filter, goji berries are the specialist for that particular task, more concentrated in this respect than almost anything else commonly available. Among common fruits, goji berries are one of the richest sources of zeaxanthin specifically, which is the half of the pigment pair concentrated right at the dead center of the macula, the single sharpest point of your entire field of vision. Most foods that support eye health lean more heavily toward lutein, so goji fills a gap that the rest of this list doesn't fully cover on its own. A research team at the University of California, Davis had healthy older adults eat a small handful of goji berries several times a week for about 90 days, and measured a real quantifiable increase in macular pigment density afterward, using the same kind of instrumentation eye specialists use in clinic. A tablespoon of the dried berries scattered on yogurt or eaten straight from the bag as a small evening snack is enough to get a meaningful dose without overdoing it on sugar. This one closes the loop back to the nighttime theme we started with. Mango also carries some zeaxanthin, similar to goji, but its true headline nutrient is beta-carotene, which your body converts into vitamin A as needed. Vitamin A isn't optional for the eyes in any sense. It's the exact molecule your retina rebuilds every single night to allow vision in low light conditions. The pigment responsible for that function, rhodopsin, is constantly being used up during the day and remade overnight, and it's built directly from vitamin A. Run short on vitamin A for an extended period, and the very first thing you tend to lose is night vision specifically. Trouble seeing clearly when you get up in a dark room, headlights smearing and haloing on an evening drive, that gradual sense that dim rooms feel darker than they used to. Mango refills that particular tank efficiently and pleasantly, which is more than can be said for some of the other traditional sources of vitamin A. One caution worth repeating clearly: mango is genuinely sweet, so if you're managing blood sugar, keep the portion to a few slices rather than a full bowl, and pair it with something else, like a small handful of nuts or a spoonful of yogurt, rather than eating it entirely on its own right before bed. I want to pause and simplify, because 6 fruits can start to feel like homework. You don't need all 6 every night. The research behind each one stands on its own, and consistency over weeks matters far more than perfection on any single evening. A realistic pattern: kiwi most nights, avocado a few times a week, orange or berries in rotation depending on what's in the kitchen, goji as an easy topper for yogurt, and mango rotated in occasionally. No meal planning software required, just a slightly different produce habit held consistently. Let me tell you about a patient. I'll call her Marion, 64, an avid home gardener whose daily rhythm revolved around fine detail, identifying seedlings, threading needles for mending, seeing her grandchildren's faces clearly across the dinner table. Her eye doctor found early signs of dry macular degeneration, small yellow deposits called drusen, the earliest visible marker of the disease, and gave her the standard advice: "We'll keep an eye on it. Come back in a year." That left her lying awake some nights doing the exact math anyone in her position would do. Is this the year it progresses, or the one after? She didn't follow an elaborate, expensive protocol. She rebuilt her evenings around a version of this exact list: avocado a few nights a week, kiwi before bed, goji on her yogurt, an orange in the fruit bowl instead of juice in the fridge, and got serious about sleep, once she understood that sleep was when the repair actually happened. She did it consistently, not just on the nights she remembered, because this tissue rebuilds a little every night, responding to routine sustained over months rather than one good week. When she returned a year later, her retinal specialist told her the macular pigment measurements looked noticeably stronger, and the drusen hadn't visibly advanced. I want to be honest about what that means. It did not reverse. Early macular degeneration doesn't undo damage already done. What happened is that its progression stopped. 2 years on, it's still holding. For a condition whose natural tendency is to creep forward year after year, holding still is a genuine win. Not brand new eyes, but a meaningfully slower clock. One hard line before we close, because everything above is about slow, gradual decline, and there's also a fast version that's a genuine medical emergency. Try this tonight. Look at a door frame or window frame, focusing on one straight edge with one eye closed, then the other. If that line looks bent wavy, or there's a dark smudge in the center of your view, that's not something fruit fixes. A wavy line can signal the wet form of macular degeneration, where abnormal vessels leak behind the retina, a form measured in days, not months. The same urgency applies to a sudden shower of new floaters, flashes of light, or a shadow moving across your vision. Any of those means calling your eye doctor immediately, the same day if possible. Food protects healthy tissue and slows an early, gradual problem. It's never a substitute for that call. Let's bring this back down to something simple and actionable. If you only add one thing, make it 2 kiwis, roughly an hour before bed, vitamin C, lutein, and better sleep from one small move. Half an avocado a few nights a week, so the fat is there to carry the lutein where it needs to go. Keep goji berries and dark berries stocked in the house, a tablespoon of one, a small handful of the other. An actual orange in the fruit bowl, never the juice, kept somewhere visible. And do the straight line test tonight. If the line looks wavy, skip the grocery store and call your eye doctor first. None of this is expensive or exotic. And all of it is feeding the one tissue everyone quietly assumes is beyond help, when really it's just been waiting for the right supplies before the doors close for the night. I'm Dr. William Bennett. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. End.